Assalamu alaikum all. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So I think let's get started. So I hope all of you have installed and configured Flutter on your machines. And if you any of you have any issues regarding it, you can message me. And also you can we can discuss at the end of this class as well. Let's just recall what we have covered in our last class. So we have covered what exactly Flutter is, and what is the difference between Flutter and Dart. Dart is a programming language that is used by Flutter, and what is Flutter architecture, and what is the difference between Flutter versus React Native, why to use Flutter and why to use React Native. And also we have covered some important topics such as sound null safety and Flutter hot restart, hot reload. So these are the all topics that we have covered in our last lecture. So let's get started with our today's session. Let me share my screen with you. It is visible to all of you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So in today's lecture, we are going to cover some basic understandings. That means we have last time built the application on our emulator and physical phones. But today's we are going to cover what the code was actually that we have built in our phones. And working with widgets and building custom widgets, which means that we know that Flutter is all about widgets. So we will build custom widgets here and the stateless and stateful widget. We have two types of, or we can say two flavors of widget, and we will cover this as well. What's the difference between them? Set state method. The set state method basically is related to set stateful widget, and it's an important function. And then we will cover reacting to user events such as buttons. So we will cover this when we click on the button, how to perform the functionality of it, and Flutter navigation from one screen to another screen, which means switching between the screens and passing data between the screens. And then compiling modes. There are how many modes are there and how to use each modes in a proper way. So let's create a brand new project. I write in Flutter create basic application, basic app. Let's wait for it. Let's open our Visual Studio Code. I've already told you that I will be using throughout this course with Visual Studio Code ID. You can also use Android Studio for Flutter development. I have to configure one thing because I have many compiled SDK versions, so I need to specify one of them since I'm using native Android side as well. Mm, Let's open our Android Studio. It's not something that you need to configure, but since I have multiple compiler SDK versions, so I need to configure that because if you can see that Flutter already takes it by itself, which I don't want it here. So let's close this and let's run our application to see if everything is working fine. We will use run without debugging. So there's a difference between with debugging and without debugging. Without debugging is a bit faster, we can say, because with debugging includes its many features in it. We will cover this, the how to debug our application to detect errors. As soon as we hit the play button, this terminal opens. This is just a normal terminal that is open inside Visual Studio Code with the specific directory that we are exactly in. So see, we are in basic application directory. So here it shows in terminal, and in debug console, we will debug our application. If there are any errors, it will pop up over here. Till then, let's discuss these left side panel and what these files are about. So first, we have this Android folder, which is very important. Android folder is for native Android application. It can be created without Flutter, but with Flutter, it provides us the advantage of creating it by self and managed by Flutter SDK itself. What it do is when we create application in main.dart file, what happens is the code of main.dart file is injected into this Android folder to create Android application. And when we talk about the iOS folder, the iOS folder is also the same as the Android folder. It's just the Xcode inside of it, Xcode directory. The Xcode is basically the development environment for Mac operating system for building iOS applications. So I for iOS folder, it builds iOS application. The main.dart file code is injected into this iOS folder for iOS application. We don't need to configure these Android and iOS folder, but in rare cases, we might need to configure these. And this build folder is about whenever we create an application, we build an application, this is automatically built, and still it is also managed and configured by Flutter. We don't need to change anything inside it. The next important is the packages file. This is also we know we don't need to write anything inside it. It is also maintained by Flutter. The two files that are important is main.dart file and pubspec YAML file. The 99% of our code or 99% of our work we will be doing is in main.dart file, and this is inside the lib folder. Lib stands for library. And in the pubspec YAML file, we will initialize our third-party packages. We have one package here, Flutter SDK, and some icons package already being there. We will initialize our packages, third-party packages over here. And we also can initialize our images over here. We will cover this in this lecture. And we can change fonts as well by downloading some different fonts and placing in the folder and then calling initializing over here. PubSpec log file is like a detailed version of PubSpec YAML file. It includes all the dependencies that we have in PubSpec YAML file and the URL of those dependencies and the versions those dependencies have. So I think application is built. Yeah, it's working. So this whole code in this code basically we have most of it the comments are basically the part of the code that we use to describe what the code is doing. It's just for the explanation. We will delete all this code and we will build our own application. So first thing is, first we will create a function which is main by writing the main and the parentheses and the curly braces. So this main function is very important in if we talk about Dart programming language, not the Flutter, just the Dart programming language. Whenever we create any application in Dart, we hit this main function automatically gets hit and automatically gets called firstly, which means it is executed by itself. And the first thing that is executed Dart in Dart programming language is the main function. So as in Flutter as well. As you can see this inside this lib folder, we have this main.dart file. This is automatically like triggered by Flutter, and Flutter looks for this file especially. And when we talk about Dart, so Dart is also look for this main function. So which means this get triggered first. And we can write void as return type since we don't have anything to return. We can write string, integer, or any data type we want to. But since we don't have anything to return, so we will write void, which means empty. So we know this. Now this is going to be triggered firstly. So what we will do is create a class in which we will of which we will create an object, and we will call our object here in this class. So class name can be anything. Let's name it my app. So here, if we can see that this naming convention is very important because it is called Pascal naming convention, and the class name should start with the capital letter, and every word in this whole word should be capital. For example, if we write my first application, so F will be capital. It's, and the next thing we need to do is extend the property of stateless widget. Now what happens is extend is the inheritance. Basically we want to inherit the properties of the stateless widget. Inheritance is a concept of parent and child class. This is a child class that we are creating, and we want to inherit the properties of the stateless widget, which is the parent class. And why we want to do this? Because our normal class is not a widget, and in Flutter we have to build a widget to create something on screen, to show up something on the screen. We have to create a widget. To do this, we have to extend stateless widget, and every class in Flutter needs to extend stateful or stateless widget. We will come back on this, what the difference between stateless and stateful widget. And for the stateless widget, it automatically gets imported. Uh, we can import anything, different things as well, such as we can import material file, which is already imported in our basic application. When we create first application, this file is already imported, and this material.dart provides many functionality, many built-in functionality to our application. This stateless widget is already also being inherited from this material.dart file. Now you might think that we haven't created this material.dart file, or we cannot see material.dart file over here. So this material.dart file is inside this Flutter package, and we already know that Flutter package is being added here in the dependencies. So inside this Flutter package, we have this material.dart class, and we are inheriting the properties of all the material.dart class. So now we have initialized our class. We have built our class and extend the stateless widget. Now there is one error. This error says that missing concrete implementation of stateless widget.build, which means it requires some build method or build. There is something named as build. So we know that the build is a method that is inside of the stateless widget. We don't need to create the whole functionality of it, but we can override that method to inherit the properties of that build method, and we can then change according to our implementation. So for what? So for this, we can do is build. This is the build method. Now, this build method should return something, which means it should return the widget. Since everything is a widget, we need to make it return as widget. And since this is not void, we have to return something as widget. And the build also takes one parameter, which is build context. The context is the special kind of special kind of argument or parameter, uh, which is also managed by Flutter. It tells our application that what is going on our application, and it provides some metadata to our application. We can return something. For example, if we return material app, this material app is also a class that is provided by this material.dart file. And one thing we can do is we can add annotations. Let's switch this to. So what this annotation mean is it's not necessary for the code, but it looks good when you because this is matter that is not created by us. It is inherited. Like we have inherited this from the stateless widget, which means this is already being created in the stateless widget class, and we are inheriting those properties. So that's why we have written the override annotation for the clear understanding. And we should initialize here an object of our class. So what we can do here is run app, my app. Terminator is important to close the line. Run app is again a special kind of function. Its name indicates that it runs the app. It takes our class and this build method, and it renders it, and it shows up on the screen. Now we can we can we can add something here. We can hit Control Space to show auto completion in Visual Studio Code. And here we have many different methods that we can use. We will consider this home, and we can type something, this text. Let's save this and see the output. So this home is a parameter, named parameter, that we are passing, and this text is again another class of material, the dart file, and inside of this we have passed our own string. Let's see if we get some output or error. So yes, This is what we were expecting, a hello world. Let's make it more beautiful by adding a scaffold widget. Scaffold widget. And inside the scaffold widget, we have different properties such as add bar and body. So what does scaffold widget do is scaffold widget is a basic implementation or basic UI building block that gives us the feature to basic material design. So we have in it we have app bar, and again app bar we can create app bar, app bar, and then we can have a title at the top. And the title, if we hover on the title, it does not take any string, it takes widget. Here it is written as widget, so we need to pass some widget. So text widget, title, for example, if we say first app. It is a good practice to use comma after every curly braces and sorry, curly not round braces. So why we need to do this? Because it makes auto formatting our whole application. If we remove this comma and save it, look, we have all the brackets together. If we remove this comma as well, it does not make any sense that uh, where the specific bracket is closing. So to understand, for better understanding, we should always use this comma. Now we have added our title as first app. Let's see the changes. So we have this title as first app. We can remove this debug um, banner on the side. To remove this, we can call debug banner, and we can pass false in it. It is removed. Now to add something on this body, add bar, control space, and here we have the body. And inside it, we can add multiple things such as text widget. Mm, let's say hello world. Yeah, perfect. So we can style it according to our choice. One more thing we can do is we can we can click on this text view, and this yellow bulb, we can hit this yellow bulb, and there are so many options. For example, we can do wrap with center. Let's add a comma, control S. Now it is centered. I want to make this concept of home title a little bit clear. For this, let's take another example. For example, um, if we make a class of a person, and we need to
Excuse me,
create,
ma'am.
yes,
Ma'am, how to increase the size of the text?
we can do styling inside it. Style and textile. We have a font size property, for example 30 dot 200 or 30 maybe. So let's comment this. This increases the size.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
So we can make this class person class, for example, and we can create an object of this class by writing, for example, var v1 is equals to person. Just ignore the errors. We are just taking a random example to understand some concepts. So we have this person class and we are creating an object of this person class. This object, we have created an object of my application inside of this run app method. So for example, if we have two person have a name and age, person name as a string value and integer age, and we can create a constructor of this person class. Now what a constructor is, it's constructor is similar to function, but when we call or when we create our object, we don't need to call function. We need to call function explicitly, but we don't need to call the constructor explicitly. It is automatically being called with the object whenever we create an object, and the constructor has the same name as the class name. So it takes two parameters here, string name and the second integer age. If you are familiar with some Java concepts or C Sharp, you might know these concepts as well. So what we do here is this dot name is equal to name and this dot age equals to age. So what we are doing here is we are creating a constructor. We have created a class firstly, and then we have two properties, two variables in it, and then we have a constructor that are taking constructor is taking two parameters, and we can pass these two parameters from this object. For example, Lena and age maybe 24. So uh, what makes this different is what makes Flutter and Dart different is we if we don't remember which parameter is first and which parameter is second. For example, if we have 10 parameters here, name, age, class, and everything. So how would we remember that which parameter is first and which parameter is second? To solve this problem, what we do is we put some curly braces, and this curly braces indicates that it is a named constructor. That means that we can now call this constructor name, and here we can call it like page. So this is a name constructor now. We can call this constructor now directly, and we can interchange the values as well. For example, if I want to call this age first and the name after it, because I don't remember when the name comes and when the age comes, is it first or second parameter? So we can do this as well. And with these brackets, it is also not. It is also optional, which means we can pass only the name or we can also pass only the age. It is not required to pass both parameters at the same time. One more thing, what we do in Flutter and Dart, this dot name. This dot name is something we are passing this parameters. For example, Lena here, and this name is getting saved in this variable. This is what we are doing here. So we can also do this in another way. This dot name and this dot age. We then don't need this. This makes our code a shortened version of our code. This is the same as this one. This named parameter here, we are indicating here as home, app bar, title. These are all the named parameters. Now let's just wrap up first with this and what we have covered in this main.dart file. So firstly, we need to import this package from which we are using classes, stateless widget, build method, all material apps, scaffold, all of these are from this material.dart class. And we have this void.main function, which is a special kind of function that is triggered whenever we run the application. And this main.dart file first triggered, and then the main function is what get triggered. And inside of this main function, we have run app. Run app is also a special kind of function that takes up our class and builds the whole UI on our screen. Then we have a class with my app, and we have extended stateless widget because we want to create our class as a widget. And we have overridden the method widget build, which is not created by us, but we have overridden the properties of this build method. We have here context, which contains metadata basically, and tells our Flutter application that what is going to perform here. And we need to return something since we have a widget here. We have a return type as widget, so we need to return something. Then we have returned a material app with debug check mode manner false. We know this what it is mean by. And we have this home page as a scaffold widget. Scaffold widget is basically a UI element building block, basic UI building block. We have this app bar which is on the top section of our screen, and inside of this app bar we have a title which is a text first app, and then we have a body. In this body we have a centered text view which says hello world, and we have done some styling as well for the text. So now let's cover what is stateless and stateful widgets. Let's close this. So what's the difference between stateful and stateless widget? So stateless widget, we can take an example of stateless widget as, for example, if we have a button and a text field inside, not a text field, just a text inside of our class, inside of our application, and it does not hold any internal state. Stateless widget is about having no internal state, which means the button do not need to redraw again and again on the screen since we have the same state every time. Now what that means is the stateful widget, this is the stateful widget. In the stateful widget, we have, for example, if we have an enter name a text field and a slider. So in the text field, for example, if we take an example of a login page, in the login page every application we have two text fields. For example, we have an email and the second is the password. So these text fields are again and again getting rendered on our screen to show up on our screen, to show up the changes on our screen. For example, abc@gmail.com. So every time abc, it is every time getting rendered on our screen and showing up on our screen. So same goes for the slider. Slider maybe can slide for left and right and change the value. For example, if we have a slider at 0, it can be 1, it can be 2. So every time the value is being changed. So it means it have some internal state. We need to save those state and we need to redraw that widget again and again on the screen. So this is about stateful and stateless widget. Let's understand what is set state method. So set state method is a special kind of method that is being used with stateful widget. Since we know in stateless widget we do not need to require any internal state. There is no internal state, but in stateful widget we have to save the state. So we again taking the example of that slider. The slider is, for example, at the 0. When we slide the slider at the left, we might have a value of 1, and when we slide the slider at the right, we might have the value of 2. So the slider value changes every time. So what set state do is set state stores that slider value in a state object, and this state objects get returns into the set state method, and then it redraws in the UI. So the whole concept is the slider, whenever we change the slider value on touch, the set state method is being triggered, and the set state method changes that value and stores that value and show that value on our screen. So this is the difference between stateless and stateful widget. Next, we have build modes in Flutter. So there are two different kinds of build mode that we usually use in Flutter. First one is the debug mode, and second one is the release mode. So let's take an example of it for better understanding. Let's create another application. Let's create another application. It will be better. Flutter create build modes app. We need to configure our compile SDK version, just in my case. Build mode app. So now let's understand what are the different build modes. So let's first consider this slide. So debug and release mode, as the name also suggests, the debug mode is for the development purpose, and the release mode is when we build our application completely, and after the development mode, we want to publish it on the Play Store or Apple Store. So the application is then on the release mode. So if we can create a new class here by left clicking this lib folder and hitting this new file. Let's name it as util.dart, and inside of this class, inside of this dart file, let's create a class util, and let's create two variables, static string URL, and another variable as static string mode. You can take an example, for example, google.com.pk and release mode. We need to call these two variables in main.dart file. Let's remove this code comments to make it little clear, etc. Let's add another text widget, or let's another text widget that would be better. Text widget. Um, my URL, your URL is, and plus sign for concatenation, util URL, comma, then another text field, um, the current. We can use double quotes or single quotes. It depends on you. The current mode is, and for concatenation we can also use a dollar sign as we use in PHP as well. So something similar to PHP. Util dot mode. So now we are just calling those classes over here, these variables of that class over here. And if you see here, the util file get imported, and it is not, it is exactly created by us, and it is inside the build modes app package and in the util.dart class. So which means we can import our classes as well. And now what we can do, so first let's understand what is the static property means. The static property is basically which is once created and used by other objects, which means we can use this static property anywhere in our application, and it cannot be changed again and again. This value cannot be changed again and again. So we know this URL, we are not going to change this URL, we are not going to change this debug mode, so we can make it static. And we know this, the whole application will be using this same URL, so we can make it static. This is in practical applications, we also do this static as URL and modes if we have. So let's create a function to detect if we are in debug mode or in static mode. Sorry, debug mode or in another mode, release mode. So here we can see that what happens is we usually what we do is we need some local host URL to be there when we are debugging our application. We don't want to hit the live URL again and again. So what we do is usually we create another instance and we change this URL to something such as localhost and the port number maybe 8000. So what we do is usually we when we are in development mode we use this URL to see if our application is working fine, and then when we build our application successfully, then we change this URL to live application, to something different. So to do this changes again and again, again in development and again in release mode, what Flutter provides us is there are two modes that can detect itself, that if we are in debug mode or if we are in release mode. We don't need to change this URL again and again. So we can create a function called static check mode, and in this function we will use assert This is the syntax. As it means to return something, we will return true in our case, and we will change the URL here, something localhost, and the mode as debug mode. So what we are trying to say here is it is some special kind of function that is also that is just called when we are in debug mode. It is not executed when we are in release mode. So what will happen here, whenever we are in debug mode, this URL will be set, and whenever we are in the release mode, this URL will be called. As it is basically a boolean kind of function that we need to return something, and we can call this function before the run app. um, Before this we can call this util dot set mode. Now let's run our application. Initially it should print the debug mode, and let's connect our phone first. This is the first time application is building on a phone, so it might take some time. And further in this session, we will be building a beautiful UI of a delivery application, food delivery kind of application. This underscore variable means the private variable. In Flutter, in Java, we define private variable as something like private, writing private, and then the variable name, integer, data type, and the name of the variable. But in Flutter, we define it by writing underscore before writing the name of the variable. So the private variables are for just for the class. We cannot use it outside of the class. Connecting to virtual machine application. Is it connected? Screen is not showing. Let's build this. You can see this. We have here your URL is, which is the URL of our debug mode, and the current mode is debug. Now, how can we change this URL to a release mode, or how it can be changed automatically? So, how in the terminal we can build a release version of this application by typing flutter run dash dash release. Now this will build the release version of this application. And I don't remember if I have told you in the last class about the extensions. Uh, whenever you create when you create application in Visual Studio Code, when you want to create application in Visual Studio Code for Flutter, you need to download two extensions. One is Flutter extension, this one Flutter. Install this and it will be enabled by itself. And the other one is the Dart extension. This extension on the left side panel, this is the second last option of extensions, and you need to download these two extensions to run Flutter in Visual Studio Code. And if you are using Android Studio for Flutter development, you still need to download some extensions there as well. Application build. You see here now it is http google.com.pk and the current mode is release mode. So whenever we build our application in release mode, this assert statement or assert function is not detected, and this assert is basically used for debugging and development purpose. So this is the difference between the debug and the release mode. There are other ways to do it, and there can be different ways to use this. Now we will take a 10 minutes of break and then we will come back and we will create our food delivery application. Let's continue. Let's create another project for our food delivery application. My screen is not shared. I hope it is visible. Flutter create um, new delivery app, new food delivery app. Flutter create new food delivery and hit enter. Now let's open this in our Visual Studio Code. Open a folder, new food delivery. Before that, we need to copy the two lines. Open a folder, new delivery folder. Mm, so what our end result will be much similar to this. Our end result will be much similar to this application, or maybe the exact of this application. Here we can see this whole screen divide. We can divide this whole screen into different sections. That is, the first at the top is the app bar that says food delivery service with the icon at the left side. The second section we can consider this search bar that we have with the search icon and the cross icon left and right. Then we have a heading called nearby restaurants, and this third section whole with the list view of items, different restaurants with the different rating and addresses. And when we hit this uh, any of the restaurant card view, basically, it will be navigate. We will be navigating into another screen. Let's try to create this, and let's change first and compile as sticky version. Control S, using this main.dart file. We will be using the start file, same as it is. Mm, we don't need this increment counter button, increment counter function, or this increment counter. We can clear this whole class as well. We can create our own class. Let's clear this as well. Let's clear our own class. First, let's change this blue color into something different, which is green. And changing this as the We will create a new class called home screen. Let's create a new class. Left click this lib folder, new class. Um, okay, let's do one more thing is we can create different folders to organize our code, such as we can create one folder for screens. Inside of this folder, we can create a file as home underscore screen. We cannot use any dash in any name. We forgot to add the extension home screen dot dart. Um, first let's create. First let's create one more folder that is models, and we will create our data model inside of this file, this folder. Data model first one can be the food dot dart. The second one can be restaurants dot dart. These two files. First we will create our data model. Let's save this. Let's create first our food dot dart class. So basically, what data models are, uh, data model basically represents our model, our data. For example, if we create a class of name food, we can think of what we have and what we consider when we consider a food class is we consider for this string variable of name of food what is the name of that food and what's the price of that food. So the price can be the double price. Double is simply integer means a single number like 3 and 4 integer, and double is 3.4 or 3.5, 4.5. That's the difference between integer and double. String name, string price, and the image URL. We will be considering the image URL as well. The image URL is basically the image of that food because we have different variety of food. If you can see in the image, in this image, they have different variety of food as well. So we will consider different images, and we can create a constructor here. Um, as we learned in our last session, constructor food, the same name as the class name, and we can create a named constructor. Name constructor means this dot image URL, comma this dot the name, and this dot the price, the terminator. Now this is showing some error. Let's read it. Image URL cannot have a null value. Okay, so we know this sound null safety concept. It cannot contain a null value. So what we can do is we can initialize this basically, or we can put the required variable, required required and required, writing this bulb and add required keyword. So what this required keyword means is whenever we will call or instantiate this class, this constructor will be instantiated by itself, and we need to pass all these three variables in it. They are the necessary elements. So this indicates that it cannot be null. The next the next class we are considering is the restaurant class, and for the restaurant class we will create restaurant model, the name of the restaurant, thing, name, the address of the restaurant, address, and the rating of the restaurant. It can be integer, it can be double. Let's consider double rating. What else we have is string image URL and uh, what is the food in that restaurant or the menu of the restaurant. You can say list view, list of food, and let's call it menu. Mm, so this list is basically number of objects or list is basically and different objects together make up a list. So here we are considering a list of not integer, not string. It's the list of this food that we have already created. Now let's create our constructor. Mm, restaurant with the name constructor again and with the required parameters. So first thing is this dot, let's say image URL or address, okay, and then this dot image URL, this dot name, this dot menu, one, okay, rating, this dot rating. Let's add the required keyword everywhere to remove our error. Okay, the food is still showing this red line error. Um, so this food is showing the red line error. Food is enter type, so it can't be used as a type argument. So food is not a type because it is not integer, it is not string. So we need to click this quick fix here, and it says import library. We have successfully imported, that is inside of this new food delivery project, inside the models folder that we have created, and inside this we have this food.dart file. Let's hit the control S. We have created our model. Now let's initialize these models by, let's create one more folder, that is beta, and let's create a new file, beta.dart. And inside of this file, we will be initializing all our variables. First, let's initialize the food, and then we will initialize our restaurant. So for food, we can say var. Um, for food, what we have in food, let's see. I've already downloaded these images, and let's place these images in our folder. Copy this folder, and in the new folder, new food delivery project, we will create a new folder, assets, and inside of this assets we are going to paste it. Inside the new food delivery we have assets folder, and inside this assets we have all the images. So when we see in our Visual Studio Code, we have here the assets folder, and inside this asset folder we have an image folder, images folder, and then we have all the images here. We have to initialize these images in the pubspec YAML file as well. Let's first initialize that. In the pubspec YAML file, what we can do is uncomment this line. It says assets, and under the assets we have this images folder. We have two folders basically, assets and images. Assets. Make sure to write this right spelling that you have written over here, assets and the images folder. Let's hit the Control S. It will start running. Let's see if it is initialized properly or not. It is initialized properly. So now we can do is what we have in images. Okay, let's consider streak. Anything you can name the variable, and underscore is representing private variable. Food. Okay, so inside of this food we have image URL, name and price. Um, let's change this image URL to something. Asset, images, dot jpg. Make sure to write the correct name. The name folder, name streak. Price, is it an integer or double? Let's recheck this. Price is double. So we can say we can take an integer as well. 500 or maybe anything. Variable. Okay, var, and we can also initialize it as a string or anything, any data type, specific data type. Var is basically a special kind of variable or a special kind of a keyword that is declared. It automatically recognizes that what kind of variable it is. For example, we can also declare something as name. My bad. Okay. If we initialize something like this, it will already automatically considered as a string variable. When we run this application, this var will convert it into a string. You can see then hovering on the name, it says string name. It's also automatically like doing things. So we have already initialized this import as well. Let's create quickly stick, and what we have next is pasta, and let's change the image as well. I hope every image is JPG. Yes, every image is JPG, and this is very easy. Once you practice all this will be very easy for you. Pancakes, pancakes. Let's change this to something 300. So we have initialized all the. There are other food as well we can initialize, but let's take the four examples, and let's create a restaurant object. Var restaurant 0 will be restaurant. um, Address, URL, name, menu, rating. So address can be, for example, ABC Karachi, um, mm, image URL, sorry, assets, images, and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, CAU 0.jpg and name of the restaurant, restaurant 0, menu. So if we see the menu is the list of the food. So how we define a list is um, by this square brackets. We define a list, and list of food means we have already defined our food items. So we can consider as like steak, pasta, and the rating is rating is double. So let's say 7.5. Let's quickly copy paste this. Creating 4 restaurants, one CCD, one, one, and let's change this to pancakes, two, and three. I'll show you this whole code if you don't want to type. Let's add one more here, the pancakes, and let's change the rating as well, 8.5, or you can say an integer value. We can write an integer as well, and let's change this to 3, 3.jpg, and here we can say 6.5. Okay, so we successfully created our food, initialized our food and the restaurant. And one more thing we need to do is create a list of restaurants, because restaurants is the combination, restaurants contain the food, and we don't need to initialize the food. So we can initialize restaurant list. We will use this list later. Restaurants, let's say 0, 1, 2, and 3. There is one error. It's pointing somewhere. Okay, we missed the terminator. Control S. We have created food.dart, restaurant.dart model, and data.dart to initialize everything. Now let's create our main.dart file with the home screen. Um, so the home screen.dart will be the stateful widget. Let's say STF. When we type STF, it shows us some Flutter stateful widget. We need to just hit the enter. The whole class will be created by itself. Let's name it something home screen. And this is showing error because we have not imported any library. We can hit this quick fix button and we can import this material.dart file. Let's save it. And now let's do some changes over in the container. So first let's consider our example. So we need to first create the app bar, and then we need to draw the search button, or then we have this list view of whole restaurant objects. So first we need to create this app bar. So let's create an app bar. We can use a scaffold widget, scaffold, and inside of the scaffold, we know there's a property called app bar, control space for auto completion, and app bar, hit enter, app bar, and inside of this app bar, we have the title that says food delivery service. Title will be food delivery service. The title is not a string, it's a text widget. So you can say food delivery service, inverted comma, delivery service. And what else we have here is this icon at the left side. We need to create this icon as well. So for this icon, we have another property that is leading. And inside of this leading, we have icon button because it's a button. And this icon button can have this icon, and you can say this icon, and icons dot, maybe, yeah, let's wait for control space. We have account circle, maybe account circle, icon button inside of icons, and icons dot, account button, control S. Let's see the error. On pressed parameter is required. Okay, let's hit this quick fix button and add required parameter, add required argument on pressed. On press is added. We don't need to create anything inside it for now. Let's just see what it looks like. First, we need to import this class. Hit this yellow bulb. Import package food delivery screens home.dart. Control S. Let's run this. It should show this app bar and this leading icon. We can customize this leading icon, the size of this leading icon. Inside of this icon property, we have different, here we have, if we hit control space, we notice the color size, we can change the size as well, something like 30.0 maybe, and control S. I'll show you the results on my phone as well, but for now, let's use this. Let's remove this debug banner as well. In the main.dart file, inside of this, under this material app, control space, debug banner, false, control S. If we close this, let's hit the run but debugging green. The text widget app bar is created. Now let's create our body. And for the body, first we need to create this search button. This is a text field basically. We can type here. So by the name, we know what we need to do is create a body. And inside this body, we will have a list view since we have different widgets and we want it to appear in a list view. And list view might have different children's. The banner should be gone. Yes, the banner is gone. Okay. Let's create the list view with multiple children's inside of this list view. Um, and we can create a text input. And for this text input, or we can say text field, we have this text field property and control S. The text field is created. If we can see that, we can type here anything. The text field is created. We need to make it a little beautiful with some rounded corners maybe, or what we can do is we have two suffix buttons as well around it. This text field is at the decoration property and input decoration. Input decoration can contain different. We need to type in, maybe we can change the border color or color inside of it. First, let's add the hint text. Hint text. Um, let's see if we have the hint text inside this decoration. Hint text. And hint text, is it a string or it is a widget? It is a string. So let's add the string as per our image. Search for food or restaurants. Search for food or restaurants. And let's save this and see. Search for food and restaurants. As soon as we click this, we type in, the hint is gone. We don't need to do further to this hint. Now let's add prefix icon. The prefix icon is the one which is on the left side, the search icon. Prefix icon, and for the icon we have, let's say icon start, search icon, maybe search icon, and we can change the size of it. Size of that icon may be 30. Search icon is printed on the screen. um, Prefix icon, we can have the suffix icon. If after this prefix icon, you can have the suffix icon as well. Suffix icon and suffix icon, again the same thing. Like icon dot maybe cross or something. Clear. If we have clear, it is not showing anything. Clear. Maybe suffix icon dot. Okay, icons dot clear. Hmm. again the size 30.0. Let's hit the save button. There is some error. Maybe we forgot to close some class. Um, let's hit the quick fix button. Or let's close some. A fix icon and cross icon is there. Now let's create this. Let's add some more beautiful view by adding input decoration color. Let's say content padding, or we can say fill color. Fill color can be anything. Colors dot. There are different colors with different shades. Let's consider this blue, and it should be filled. If we say filled, true. This is some ugly color. Let's change back to white. We can change the border as well. Border, the main purpose is to show you there are many properties. You can use many properties as much as you want to customize border radius. Border radius is gonna be something like border. This might be difficult in the beginning, but once you create an application, it is easier. Border dot border radius dot set. Let's say border radius dot circular maybe, or yes, circular with the radius maybe 20.0. So the circular, let's make it 30. Does not look nice. 30. Yeah, it's much better. Border radius is 30. Next we can say border side. Um, let's just say it's fine. Border side, border side width, maybe changing the width, something like 0.8. When we click this, the width should change to some extent. This the border width is changing. And next we should have little padding at the top. The padding and margin are two different things. To explain the padding and margin, let's let me show you some image to explain the padding and the margin concept. Padding versus margin. So we can consider an image something like this. So the padding is basically this is the block of the content that we have. The padding is inside of that block, increasing the size, and the margin is outside of that block. This is the difference between padding and margin. So let's add a little padding first, and text field wrap with text field wrap with padding, or can say text field wrap with padding. Text field wrap with padding will create as inset not all. That means padding in every side will be 8.0. Let's better, much better. Padding 8.0, and the search bar is quite nice, I think. Let's move on to our next section, that is this nearby restaurants. First, we can see that there is one text view that is showing nearby, and then we have whole list of elements that is more important. So after this whole text field, this is text field ending padding, and after this, inside the list view, we can have one text view, the text, nearby restaurants, nearby restaurants. Okay, we can style it accordingly. For example, we can change the size of it, maybe the text size is the size. um, Textile, inside this textile we have font size, maybe 24.2. Now this is very important. Then when in development, we just need to hit the control S and it automatically changes. We don't need to restart the whole application again and again. Let's say font weight. Font weight is to add, we can say the bold or italic. Font weight property dot bold normal, or some between the bold, maybe 600. You can change all these things according to your choice. It's not necessary that I'm using this, you should use the same or something. Letter spacing 1.2 maybe. Um, Letter spacing 1.2 better. Let's add this text field or text inside a column. We add it inside the column because we need to create this whole view, and this is vertical view, so we added the column. And inside the column, we can say a little padding we might require. Let's add some padding. And in the column cross-axis alignment, cross-axis alignment dot start. Now what's this cross-axis alignment is? There are two type of alignment. One is cross-axis alignment and the other is main axis alignment. So the main axis alignment for column is their own alignment, which means for column it will be, main axis will be the y-axis, and for column the cross axis will be the x-axis. And if we talk about the raw, the main axis will be, in raw case it will be the x-axis, and the column cross axis will be y-axis opposite. So we have done cross axis alignment to start because we want the vertical in the not in the middle or not on the right or left. We want it on the left of the page. So cross axis alignment. Nearby restaurants is done. Now after this padding, or inside this column, we can say inside this column, inside this children, we can have one more children, which will be our, let's create a separate widget for it. Build restaurant. This is the function that we are calling here. We are going to create this function. Let's copy the name of this function. This is a private function. At the top of this, we can create a function over here. Or Control V. There is some error. Okay, comma, inverted comma. Inside of this function is going to, let's create first a list of widget, and this list widget will be restaurant list, and this will be an empty list. We will add items in this list. Restaurants add from auto import. This restaurants is imported from this services.dart restaurant dot for each element. Let's change it to restaurant restaurant. So this restaurant we mean by is the class that we have created. Let's close this as well. For each restaurant, we for this UI you can see that this is a repetitive kind of card view. So we just need to build one card view, and auto and by changing the just the name and the rating, address, and the image, the second one should be automatically created. So for that, we are creating this loop for each loop. For each is a loop, and the restaurant type. And inside this restaurant type, we can add restaurant list dot add. This list is this one. We need to add. What we need to add is, let's say, a child, or we can say a container maybe. Um, let's call it child first. Child. With the material view, let's add the material app, or say let's say scaffold, and animator. Inside the scaffold, we can have child. Scaffold might not have a child. Let's say the material app, because we might require the child element, or list view. It says padding child, or padding child. Anyways, we can create a gesture detector. So gesture detector is because we are going to learn as well that how to navigate from one screen to another screen. So gesture detector is helpful for that purpose. This gesture detector, might have missing some parameters. Um, this gesture detector, we can say tap on top of this gesture detector, what we want to do is, okay, uh, this is the one line function. When we are using one line of function, such as, for example, if we consider this example, this void main function, And in the void main function, what we want to do is, this is, we know this function contains only the one line. So, and so what we can do is we can also write something like this: main run app and my app. These two are the similar ways, but this is the shortened method for the one line code. Let's stick with that. So it's important to understand some Dart concepts as well. We might have some errors. Let's just ignore the errors for now. Navigator navigator.push navigator.push context and the route for the next page. We need to create a next screen for that. Let's create a new file under the screens folder, and in the new file, for example, detailed page dart class detail, okay, stateless widget detailed class, and importing the material.dart file, and here we can call our route to something as material page route. Inside this we have this builder which should be initialized. It might be the required parameter. In this builder we can pass again our context and then one line function, such as detail detailed class auto import detailed class, and inside this detailed class we can have pass our restaurant restaurant. We can pass like this. This might show some error, isn't defined. Try correcting the name of the parameter. Add named parameter. Okay, we need to initialize here as well. So let's do it later. We know this should be initialized in the detailed class as well. Well, what we are doing here is basically gesture detector is to detect our gesture on tap event. When we tap any of these restaurant card view, what we are going to do is navigator.push. We are hitting this navigator.push function. Navigator class have some push function, and this function takes two parameters, that is context and the material page route. Context is this page context, that from where we are going to switch, and the material page route is is the class for which we are going to switch. For example, this is the first class and this is the second class, we can say that. And in the material page route we have this builder property. In this builder property we have this context. First we will pass our context from where we are switching, and then we will pass the name of the class to which we need to switch. This is the important concept of navigating from one screen to another. Next we can have the gesture detector is closing here. Navigator.push, navigator material page, navigator.push. Okay, so inside of this gesture detector we can have a child. Now this child can have a container container with let's say margin or decoration elements. But let's first create a decoration box. Decoration, say box decoration. Inside of this box decoration we can define our color. maybe colors dot white, or and other thing we can define is border radius. We need the rounded border, not much rounded but little rounded. The border radius dot circular, and here we can have maybe 15 or 20. We will see this, and then we can have the border dot all sides. We need border from all sides. Um, Width maybe define. We can define some width, maybe 2 or 1, and color can be gray, or we can say colors dot gray. There is some error expected. Okay, we forgot. And after this container, um, border all, just box decoration inside the container. Inside the container, we can have another child which is inside the container. Let's see what. Just make this an empty parameter and let's see some results. First, class home missing concrete implementation of state build. State build is there, but we need to close this properly before building application. Expected and other term. This is difficult a little bit to manage, but let's do it. Let's see what we have right here. First we have for each loop, it is closing properly. Let's start from this border all. Then we have box decoration. Then we have a container and push, material page, gesture detector, restaurants dot add. This is extra. Restaurants dot add. Then we have this for each loop. For each loop is closing. And then we have for each loop is closing. Let's complete this first. Then it will automatically. Inside this border dot or after this box decoration, gray color box decoration, we can have one more child that is inside the row, and here we can have a children, different children, because we are building this in a row, restaurant 0 and 8.0 ABC. So we are building this right now. Inside of this row, we can have a clip R React. This clip R React is to make this border little curve, border radius. Border radius can be border radius, circular, and here can we say 15.0. We can have a child here, child with the image, and the image we are going to use is image Asset image. We have images in our asset, and asset image. Then we have a restaurant dot image URL. We can decorate this with the height, weight, width. Height can be 50, 150 maybe, 150.0. Width will be the same, 150.0, and fit, box fit, box fit dot cover. After this, the clip are yet are is choosing, and then we can have our another container to container, and inside of this container we can margin little bit, something like agent6 dot all, maybe 12.0, and then we can have column child column can be um, main axis alignment center. Let's say main axis alignment dot center. Cross axis is also center here. Cross axis alignment dot center. Complete this with children's different text field. We need three text fields: restaurant 0, 8.0, ABC address. So we can say here restaurant dot name of the restaurant, and we can style it, such as style, textile, textile. No background. We don't need the background. We just need to change the font size. We can also change the font family, but not for now. It's already late right now. So font weight, font weight dot maybe something 600. We can do bold as well. Bold. So this is the text view for the name. Now we need to create this text view for. Let's copy this. We are copying text view text copy, and let's paste it one more time. Now this text must contain the rating, restaurant.rating. But since this restaurant.rating is integer, we can only provide the string value here. So we need to convert this rating. For example, we can convert it like dot to string, and the to string will convert our rating into a string. The same styling goes here, and we can also size box, and size box maybe the height can be 4.0 or 3.0. 3.0 will be okay. Um, let's see what else we need to change. Size box is basically to create a space between two elements. So we are creating extra box between these two. What else we have right now? Address. Let's create this text. Three remaining. We don't need to convert this. We just can type in address. text address, size box, and what next we have? It says expected. Okay, expected to find terminator. Expected to find. The only one must be missing, and let's create one more. Raw container gesture detector. Last should be the gesture detector, and the restaurant. Yeah, this one restaurant add as well. The guest after this gesture detector, we can have this restaurant add, and after this, there's still some error. Okay, we are missing some. We have this list view. We have this build.widget. We are missing something here as well. Let's see what we are missing. Let's open. Let's open the folder that we have already created an application. Desktop delivery app, and this folder we have created all this. We have built restaurants. The last two are the curly braces.
Ma'am, we are missing comma after border all.
Sorry, where?
Border all.
Border all. Border radius. Border radius. Border all. That's not a problem. I think we are missing some round bracket. This is why it is showing some error. Let's just copy paste this without wasting our time. It's just the missing some of these bracket. Otherwise, the code is the same that we are doing. The important concept here is the navigation drawer. Navigation, not drawer, navigation from one to another screen. We have new detail page, detail, detailed page, detailed class. Okay, detailed, detailed class, and this one we need to import this, and let's create this one. Quick fix, import everything. Now let's quickly cover this detailed class as well. So in this class, we can remove this and we can create a restaurant. We can close this restaurant, restaurant, and a constructor, detailed class constructor, and the named parameter again, required parameter, restaurant. This dot restaurant, just this dot restaurant, comma. Let's see what we can do here is we can change this to scaffold and we can create the body and just add the child or children's inside of it. Let's add the child body. Inside of this body we can add padding first. Let's add some padding, and edge all dot all value can be 8.0. And after this padding, inside this curve full body padding, inside of this padding we can have a child. After this padding we can add this child, and child can contain the list view elements, and the list view can have multiple children's. Here we can show our text budget dot restaurant dot name. Create a local variable restaurant. The restaurant isn't defined for the type widget. Try importing the library restaurant. Let's see what the error mean. We have this restaurant over here and we are getting this restaurant. We can use this widget with the W small. It might work. Widget dot restaurant, and let's see if we have all the errors. Let's just save it for now and see the results first. Green.dart file start without debugging. Let's see what it is turn out to be. Okay, we are using the stateful widget. You should create a stateful widget here. Let's run this first. Detailed restaurant class. Okay, so the UI is something working. Let's click on this any of these restaurants. It is jumping on the next page, but we should print something here. But this should be the stateful widget class. STF stateful widget class. The name of class will be the same detailed class. Inside of this detailed class, we can check the name. detailed class, detailed class. Let's create this, and then we are done. Let's create again the restaurant variable with the type restaurant, and here required parameter this dot restaurant. Here we can do a scaffold widget. Inside of the scaffold widget, we have our body and the padding, edge all inside dot all 8.0. That's the default value. So just using this default value. After this padding, we can have our file size inside the scaffold widget. Child class will be child class can be list view that we have created. List view of elements, and list view can have different children's inside it. We can use child because we are just going to print one text. Widget dot restaurant dot and the name of restaurant maybe. So let's hot restart it. Let's click on any restaurant 2, back, restaurant 0. Let's build it quickly on our mobile phone as well to see the results. Let me connect my phone and we will wind up this section. When you're creating a UI, first you need to divide this whole page into different sections that you think you can divide, and then consider it making it. For example, when we first created it, we know this is the app bar. We have created the app bar and the search bar, and then we have seen the results, and then we have created the whole UI. So this is a good practice to cover it by dividing. Let's see if my phone is visible. Yes, it is. ADB, USB2 talking. Now, why I need to again and again this on this? This is just my phone issue. That's why I need to again. Let's uninstall this application first. I don't have much space in my phone, so I have to uninstall the first application. Let's display button. Let's close this Chrome as well. And now let's start run without debugging, so it might be a little faster. You can make the second page as beautiful as the first page, but as we don't have much time, so we can stop here. Let's see if we have covered all the topics. So we have covered the basic understanding. We have covered the basic understanding. We have built our custom widgets. We know the difference between stateful and stateless widget. We haven't covered the stat state, but I'll tell you what to do with this. And we cover this reacting to user events. We have not the buttons for to click on, but we created a card view for the restaurants, and we when we tap on that card view, it switched to next screen. We have covered this Flutter navigation and the passing data from one to another, which in our case we have passed the restaurant, the whole restaurant object, and we have covered also the compiling modes. It is not built yet. Okay, it is building. So you can ask me questions if you have any, and you have one assignment as well that you need to submit. You can submit on by Friday. The last day to submit is on Friday. Friday, the date will be 31st. Before 31st or on 31st, you can submit it. I'll discuss with you what you have to do with this. It's created. This is created in our phone. Food delivery service, search bar, it's working, type, and then we have different restaurants. Okay, one restaurant is repeating, restaurant 0, it's fine. Let's hit any restaurant. Let's say restaurant 1, back, then again to any other restaurant, restaurant 2, it should say restaurant 2. You can display here image as well. You can make an image at the top and the description of that restaurant, or maybe showing some rating or reviews. You can do much more better than this. So let's discuss the assignment first. What we have in our assignment, um, you need to create an email application. You can consider for UI for in your phone. You have different email application, maybe Gmail, and email itself an application. So you have to create an email application. It should include an app bar. We know what app bar mean, and it should have a floating action button. Maybe for compose new email, we have at the left bottom, we have this floating action button. Um, Different screens. It should minimum 2 screens are required, and you should show the different screens, switching between the screens as well, that we have learned in this lecture. And the next thing is navigation drawer. So navigation drawer is basically with the 3 hamburger icon. When we click these 3 hamburger icon, we have that navigation drawer, which is slide from the left side. So it is optional. If you don't want to create, you can skip this and the set state. So we haven't used set state here, but I have already told you how to use set state and what set state mean. And if you remember, we have used set state in our first class. Um, I can show you if I have some basic code. I might need to create a new project for it. But well, we know what set we have used set state, not much, but the counter was updated inside the set state. So set state is basically when you need to save that internal state, and you need to repeat that counter whenever that hits the floating action button. You need to update that counter. So we have used that set state in first class. So you should have the set state used in this email application somewhere. I can show you some UIs as well. For example, email app UI. There, we can type in mobile UI maybe. Mobile UI. You can take any example, whatever you feels. Um, for example, this one. We have a list view. We have the top app bar, and we have different here. This is the navigation drawer at the hamburger icon, three lines. This is the hamburger icon. Whenever we click this icon, this whole side, left side show up, and there are different pages. You can do this, but it is not necessary requirement. There are different email types. You can consider any of them, whatever is easy for you. So any questions? I'll share this slide, I'll share this code.
Ma'am, any example of set state in email app?
Look, I haven't given you any example. The reason is this, that you should search a little about it, and we will cover it in our next lecture and discuss it. But for the set state, we can create a new project and we new project. Let's open this new project.
मैम
And yes,
आपने इस वीक असाइनमेंट दिया तो आप नेक्स्ट वीक भी देंगी, जैसे जैसे हम सीखते जाएंगे नई चीज़ें तो हमें वो इम्प्लीमेंट करते जानी होंगी, राइट?
बिल्कुल आपको इम्प्लीमेंट करते जानी होंगी वो चीज़ें, वरना ऐसा होगा कि सिर्फ मैं पढ़ाती रहूँगी और आप लोग कुछ सीख नहीं पाएंगे। तो अगर आपको ये चीज़ जो मैंने अभी सिखाई है इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं करनी है तो आप ना करें बेशक, लेकिन जो असाइनमेंट है आपको उसको इम्प्लीमेंट ज़रूर करना है।
बिल्कुल मैम, पूरी कोशिश करेंगे।
और कोई भी प्रॉब्लम हो तो आप मुझे मैसेज कर सकते हैं व्हाट्सएप पे, ग्रुप पे मैसेज कर सकते हैं। So set state example is here. We have used your set state. We are we have the stateful widget, and we are using the set state method. And inside the set state method, we are updating this counter. And the reason is this: that if we don't update inside of the set state, the counter will not update. It will be updated, but it will not show up on the screen. So to re-render the screen and to show up on the screen, we should use the set state.
Okay, ma'am, thank you.
Any other questions? We have covered the front end part in this class. We in the next class we will try to cover the back end part with the Firebase, and we might gonna interact with APIs to get the data and post the data on the API. So before moving on the back end, I want you all to perform the front end. Yes, we can finish the section. Session. I haven't read any messages. Screen not visible. can give image as an icon. Well, the comma is not important part, but the comma is important when we need to format things. When we are formatting things, we need to include the comma. So let's end the session and try to implement email. And you can, I will share my email with you. You can send me your code on my email, or you can share your drive link as well. Okay, so let's end this.
Thank you so much, Lena.
Thank you.